With the Russia-Ukraine war showing no signs of resolution, the United States is issuing a stark warning to both sides. Following State Secretary Marco Rubio's tough stance, Vice President J.D. Vance has signaled that the U.S. could walk away from its mediation role unless Russia and Ukraine commit to meaningful negotiations.
What the president has said is that he will walk away if he thinks he's not making progress. And I think that, about once every 4 or 5 weeks, you will hear some American official or sometimes multiple American officials say, this is a week where we need to make another step.
Vance expressed deep frustration with Russia and Ukraine, accusing them of being mired in historical grievances that derail peace talks. The ongoing bloodshed, he argues, demands urgent action.
But there are a lot of people watching who are not in the room, is a frustration that we've had, frankly, with both sides, is that they hate each other so much that if you have an hour conversation with either side, the first 30 minutes are just them complaining about some historical grievance from 4 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Look, I understand it. I understand that people don't fight wars against each other without a lot of grievance and a lot of problem.
Calling the prolonged war a diplomatic failure, Vance stressed that the U.S. cannot prop up a conflict with no political endgame. Both sides, he says, must start talking constructively to avoid a U.S. exit.
And our view is it's absurd that you've had this war go on for so long and the two sides aren't even talking constructively about what would be necessary for them to end the conflict. And I think that, one of the things that President Trump has always been very good at.
Vance defended Trump's pragmatic approach, which involves pressing both sides to articulate realistic terms for peace. While condemning Russia's invasion, he insists that understanding each party's perspective is essential to breaking the deadlock.
In other words, you don't have to agree with the Russian justification for the war, and certainly both the president and I have criticized the full-scale invasion, but you have to try to understand where the other side is coming from to end the conflict. And I think that's what President Trump has been very deliberate about, is actually forcing the Russians to say, here is what we would like in order to end the conflict.
Negotiations remain at an impasse. Russia's demands are seen as excessive by the U.S., while Ukraine, defending its sovereignty, refuses to budge. A Ukrainian proposal for a 30-day ceasefire was dismissed by Russia, deepening the stalemate.
You can think that the request is too significant, and certainly the first peace offer that the Russians put on the table, our reaction to it was, you're asking for too much, but this is how negotiations unfold. And I wouldn't say, I'm not yet that pessimistic on this, I wouldn't say that the Russians are uninterested in bringing this thing to a resolution. What I would say is right now, the Russians are asking for a certain set of requirements, a certain set of concessions in order to end the conflict.
U.S. frustration is reaching a boiling point as Russia remains rigid and Ukraine holds firm. Vance has made it clear that direct talks between the two sides are non-negotiable, warning that America's patience is wearing thin.
It's important for the Russians and the Ukrainians to start talking to one another. We think that is the next big step that we would like to take. And why does that matter? The reason it matters is because, again, I mentioned the Russians, but also the Ukrainians have also been sort of, they've put a piece of paper in our hands that says this is what we would need.
Vance emphasized the war's devastating impact on all parties, warning that the U.S. will not remain entangled in a fruitless conflict. The administration's message is unequivocal. Talk or we are out.
I'll say, just to echo something that President Trump has said many times, but I think it bears repeating, is our strong view is that the continuation of this conflict is bad for us, it's bad for Europe, it's bad for Russia, and it's bad for Ukraine. We think that if cool heads prevail here, we can bring this thing to a durable peace.
As the Russia-Ukraine war grinds on, The US has drawn a firm line in the sand. Unless Russia and Ukraine move toward direct negotiations, the Biden administration's threat to step back could reshape the conflict's trajectory, leaving the warring sides to face the consequences of inaction.